Just a quick announcement that this is going to be just a regular audio-only video. I'm not gonna put anything on screen. I'll just have background footage of my 3D Land retrospective that I have over on my alt channel, Nintendine Plus. So feel free to jump on there and subscribe and enjoy that content if you'd like. What's up, everybody? It's Friday night. It means you get a second video. That's not actually always a rule, but hey, I got something to talk about, so might as well. So Nintendo did that thing again where they kind of hide some bit of news that most people are not interested in behind something bigger that will take more headlines because they are aware of the implications of just announcing this one thing by itself. So yesterday, in between all of the Circana news, Nintendo, I'm sure, is 100% aware that they were going to be talking about how it's the fastest selling console in 7 months because they're not including the Game Boy Advance. And I'm sure they were aware it was going to have some kind of effect on the stock market. So in between all of that, it was their best chance to announce the release date for Super Mario Bros. Wonder Switch 2 Edition. They did something similar back at the end of July. At the end of July, they made an announcement that the next big Switch Direct that everybody was so hyped up for and waiting for was going to be a partner direct or a third-party direct. A game key card direct. And they announced it on the day that there was going to be Circana news because they knew it was going to be positive and they can hide that huge wave of negativity that would have come otherwise because people were expecting a regular Nintendo Direct. Once you start paying attention to the announcements that Nintendo makes and when they make them, this stuff starts to become very obvious. It's a big reason why I follow their stock numbers. Again, for example, we all knew that that September Direct was going to be taken very negatively because there was nothing big that was going to be announced in that September Direct outside of a $70 Mario Galaxy Twin Pack. So Nintendo ended up having that Direct on a Friday, something they never do, which is often known as a Friday news dump. There were assumptions back then that people were doing it because they were trying to avoid September 11th, but Nintendo had actually never avoided September 11th in the past. They've actually released games on September 11th. They're obviously a Japanese-centric company. They're not going to base their business decisions around that. But yeah, after that September Direct, they placed it on a Friday, and sure enough, by the time Monday came around, the stock market tanked, and they were kind of hoping to avoid that. And with every single one of the big swings and big announcements that you've seen happen through Nintendo's stock market, where it either jumps up or goes down, you always find something hidden behind it. And in this case, it was the announcement of Super Mario Bros. Wonder coming out a week before the Mario Bros. Movie. The Switch 2 edition of this game. So it's nothing more than glorified DLC. You can't even call it proper DLC because you have to have a Switch 2 in order to actually enjoy the additional features. And likewise, you can't enjoy the graphical enhancements, and I don't know if there's frame rate improvements or not, but basically you can't even enjoy the base Switch 2 stuff without paying the $20, being forced to grab the DLC in order to enjoy it. So long story short, it's not exactly what people are looking for in a Super Mario release around the time of the new Super Mario Bros. Movie during the 40th anniversary of Mario. And Nintendo is well aware of that. That's why they wait for the Circana news to take all of the headlines and help out their stock value and then just sneak this in behind it. And likewise, right now, people are dying for a Nintendo Direct. Like, it's the same situation as we felt back last year leading up to September. There is nobody who is starving and thirsty more than Nintendo fans right now. Those poor things have nothing to play. If you see a Nintendo fan on the street, pat him on the back and give him a hug. Because they bought this console and there's just nothing for those poor souls to play. Or even to look forward to, because Nintendo just drip feeds everything and they keep everything a secret. They don't help their fans out. So they are just waiting for something from Nintendo, any sign of any hope of any good title for them to enjoy. And they're just looking for that word direct every day. They just want to see a Nintendo Direct. And so Nintendo now, in their wisdom, they have to find a way to navigate this. Because they also have a movie they need to put out some kind of information and advertisement for, but they're well aware that if they said, hey, there's a new Nintendo Direct and we're going to be talking about the movie, that's going to drive people mad. So once again, it's a Friday news dump, the same way they did back in September. They bring out the fact that there's going to be a Direct, it's going to be a movie Direct, and it's going to be on a Friday, so it gives the market little time to react. As a matter of fact, it's post the market in Japan being closed. It's not going to open up now until Sunday night, US time. And what's even more telling about the amount of caution that they're doing for this Direct, this new Nintendo Direct that everybody's waiting for is a Mario Direct, is they're actually going to have it release on Sunday when the market is completely closed. They certainly didn't have to do this last time. Back then, they had trailers and announcements and a movie Direct going on Thursday like regular because people were hyped for it back then, and they were still very much living in a time where the Nintendo fans were happy about Nintendo. Right now, Nintendo fans are not happy with Nintendo, so they have to be a lot more careful. And now, the Mario Movie Direct is going to be on a Sunday. The last time Nintendo did something on a Sunday was when they announced there would be a price adjustment for the Nintendo Switch 1. They didn't suggest that it was going to be an increase in price, but obviously we assume that. But obviously it's bad PR to come out and say we're going to increase the prices, so they said we're going to adjust the prices. And then on a Sunday, randomly, everybody just woke up and the Switch 1 family of systems was all more expensive, without so much as an announcement on that day. So the point is that when Nintendo puts something out on a Sunday, they're doing it intentionally in hopes that it will not affect the stock market. That's how they have to navigate things now, because they're afraid of the backlash, and deservedly so. They should be afraid because they're treating everybody like crap, so they deserve every ounce of this fear that they have. They want the Super Mario Bros. Switch 2 edition to be the big Mario movie release in the holiday, because they're not trying to get to us, not the people that are online who are like, Nintendo needs to drop the price and start making good games for the gamers. They're trying to get to the casual audience with their focus on the movies, and so they're trying to release this 2D Mario title along with the movie in order to push sales for that game, because that game came out a year or two ago, and they're like, we can get some more sales from this like we did with Jamboree and Kirby and the Forgotten Land. But the gamers don't want that. The casuals, they can be fooled, potentially. But because we are affecting their narrative and all of their news and announcements has to come out on the social media, on YouTube, where nobody likes Nintendo anymore, and they've very much been unsuccessful in keeping their news all on the Nintendo Today app in hopes that people will flood their way towards that app. So since they lost control of their media and they lost control of the people out there that are spreading the information that they share to the rest of the world, these are the kind of antics that they have to pull in order to make an announcement that the big Mario movie coming out this year for the 40th anniversary is Super Mario Wonder Switch 2 Edition, and it's going to be coming out a week before the movie. And because they know that gamers don't really care that much about the movie, like I'm sure people will enjoy it and it'll be nice, but the bottom line is the people online that are talking about this movie are mostly gamers, naturally, and gamers don't like Nintendo right now, so Nintendo knows that they have to tiptoe around all of this. They have to bring out the announcement really on a Friday in hopes that it doesn't affect the stock market, which is already going up because of the Circana data, and they have to release the Direct on a Sunday. Now, why would Nintendo feel the need to go through all of this effort just to release their Direct? Why are they clearly so scared of the discourse around their company during the past 8 or 9 months? Why do they think an entire fandom would be upset that Super Mario Bros. Wonder Switch 2 Edition is the big Mario game that people have been waiting for since they got a Nintendo Switch 2? And obviously, it's because Nintendo's last 3D Mario title was Super Mario Odyssey. Super Mario Odyssey came out in 2017, and currently it's 2026. I think I made a similar point before, but if your first Mario game when you were a child was Mario Sunshine, within the span of about a decade, you went through Sunshine and the 2 Galaxy games and 3D Land and I think 3D World? Maybe it was an extra couple years for 3D World. On the other hand, if the first Mario game you had played was 3D World when you were a child, the only games you would have played were 3D World and Odyssey. So Nintendo has dramatically spaced out their games. And obviously this is part of their drip-feeding model. You know, people have memed that whole Nintendo has forgotten about Mario video that was made. And I don't remember exactly when that video came out, but I think it's been over 2 years now. We might be around 2.5 years since that launched. I'm pretty sure he did it in 2023. Everybody laughed at him because they're like, oh, how could they possibly have forgotten about Mario? And then they proceeded to be like, we just got Super Mario Bros. Wonder, Paper Mario Thousand Year Door had come out. There was Luigi's Mansion game, Princess Peach Showtime, Mario Donkey Kong, Super Mario RPG. But the reality is obviously that the discussion was about the next 3D Mario title. After Mario Odyssey had come out, there was a clear assumption by everybody in the fandom that we would be getting some kind of DLC for the game, more than just like an update like Luigi's Balloon World. Everybody had all of these theories about how Delfino Isle was going to be included. They were as certain about that update back then as right now people are incorrectly certain about a Mario Kart World DLC coming soon. So it's been a decade now, and people buy Nintendo games for their favorite Nintendo IPs, and there is no larger IP in the Nintendo sphere than Mario. And the flagship series of Mario currently is the 3D Mario games, or at least it's supposed to be. But the reality is there is no game that requires as much time and energy and efficiency and budget even as a 3D Mario game, and it has to be a banger every single time. They cannot screw up a 3D Mario. So it is very risky for them to put that out there. Even 3D World, when it came out on the Wii U, was a huge risk and it was met with a lot of negativity. So Nintendo clearly is being extremely cautious as to when they put out this new 3D Mario game and when they even announce it, if it even exists. I am personally of the opinion that there has to be a 3D Mario game almost done somewhere, if not already completed. And they're definitely sitting on their hands right now, waiting for the right moment to bring that into the game, bring that into the picture. I wonder if there's like a certain sales benchmark that they have to meet where they get this amount of consoles, whatever the number is, just to guarantee that many sales of the game. Because, back then, they released Odyssey, and Odyssey sold systems. This time, they're not taking any chances. Nintendo doesn't take chances anymore on their fans. Rather, they stay silent and they wait for their fans to go out there and tell people, hey, just go buy the console. Eventually, this is going to go to Smash Brothers. Not realizing that Nintendo will not put out games for gamers, and they will withhold all of their big hitters as long as they are still doing well financially and their stock value is doing good. And to an extent, they're also really afraid of cutting off the sales for Bonanza. I think they expected Bonanza to do much better. They pushed Bonanza as the big Breath of the Wild game for the Nintendo Switch 2. It was the headliner for their first Direct. They wanted Bonanza to be the Breath of the Wild and the Odyssey for the Switch 2, and they did so by having the Odyssey team make Bonanza. And they've given Bonanza ample time to become that. But no matter how well it's selling, it's not even close to being whatever Odyssey and Breath of the Wild could pull off. Not even half of what a single one of those two could pull off. So maybe they're like, we cannot announce a 3D Mario unless Bonanza gets to X amount of sales. And the Switch 2 has X amount of units out there, and the user base is this large, and they start buying our games. Because we cannot release a 3D Mario to the masses unless we know it's going to be guaranteed to have like that giant fastest selling number behind it and all the headlines and everything. And I hope for the sake of Mario fans that that is what's actually going on here. Because the alternative situation is that they had the Mario team make Bonanza and that's all they've been working on for the past 5 years. And now they're starting production on a 3D Mario game because they expected that Bonanza was going to be the big 3D Mario game for the Switch 2's launch. This is actually a very big reason why last year I said I don't think we're going to get a 3D Mario within 3 to 5 years. And I think the fact that Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 came out last year was a clear indication of that. As well as the fact that they're pushing 3D World and Mario Odyssey to the best of their ability by saying they have their Switch 2 enhancements, go and buy these Switch 1 3D Mario games. Because, and I've kind of alluded to this before, while us 3D Mario fans view Mario Odyssey as the last time there was a true 3D Mario game that had come out, Nintendo does not view it like that. In their minds, the last 3D Mario game that came out was the re-release of Mario Galaxy 1 and 2. And prior to that was 3D World and Bowser's Fury, and prior to that was 3D All-Stars. As far as they're concerned, they're doing very well on the 3D Mario front, and those games are still selling. And as long as those games are still selling, and as long as they still are able to keep this facade about the fastest selling console for a little bit longer, they don't need to put out a big hitter, because it is all about artificially extending the lifetime of their Nintendo console, and giving their games a chance to flourish and make more sales by not providing more games for others. So if you're somebody who's like, I'm not sure if I want to buy this game, I'd rather wait for the next big game, it's too bad. Eventually, you're going to be like, I got nothing to play on my Switch 2. I guess I'm going to go and pick up Metroid Prime 4 or Kirby Air Riders. Or if you didn't buy it before, maybe now you're like, fine, I guess I'll give Bonanza a try. Seems like more people are buying it now. Because as soon as they announce that next 3D Mario, Bonanza becomes a forgotten game and they focus on the next big thing. That's how the modern fans operate. They're just the one shiny thing to the next. And look, I'm very confident about this because I've been a Nintendo fan for my entire life. I've seen the directs, I've seen how they've transitioned, I've seen how they shifted in the way that they deliver news and they deliver new games ever since around the halfway point of the Switch's life. And it's equal parts hilarious and kind of sad to me to see the hope that's in every single one of these Nintendo fans as they eagerly await for the next big title, or eagerly await for that Mario Kart DLC, or eagerly await for that next Direct, and they cling on to every single fake leak, anything that's brought up from the media, because Nintendo thrives on that kind of attention. They thrive on the people feeling like they need Nintendo to say something, and they need Nintendo to announce something. It's very twisted. And of course, it's something that Nintendo influencers have been taking advantage of. And it's a very big reason why there's so much distaste towards Nintendo influencers now. Because all they've ever done is generate all this extra fake hype about every minor bit of news and make things blown way out of proportion. And straight up lie to their viewers if they have to. All for the name of algorithmic engagement. But listen, I'm a 3D Mario fan. Even if I'm not going to buy a Switch 2 anytime soon, if there's a 3D Mario game announced, I know I'm going to be playing that game eventually. I'm not saying I have so little self-control that I'm going to go out there and buy a brand new Switch 2 and that game day one as soon as it comes out, but it's absolutely going to be a title that's on my radar, the same way that Bonanza was. And even as a 3D Mario fan that is intently waiting for the next 3D Mario game, remember, I'm making retrospectives on 3D Mario. I'm currently wrapping up my Mario 3D World video, although I shouldn't say wrapping up because it's probably not going to be released for a few weeks. And after that Mario 3D World retrospective, I'm probably going to be doing Odyssey next. So a new 3D Mario announced would be massive. That channel would blow up. It would be great for my engagement. I would love for a new 3D Mario game to be announced, not only as a content creator, but as somebody that's a massive fan of this franchise. It's my favorite IP, my favorite type of game. I mean, the Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 games were announced in the September Direct. I absolutely hated the fact that Nintendo was reselling those games for $70, but guess what? My alt channel grew massively and I got huge views on those videos. So there is actual benefit for me, both monetarily as well as a fan, for a 3D Mario game to be announced. And despite how much I would absolutely love for Nintendo to come out of nowhere and be like, hey, just so you guys know, 40th anniversary, that 3D Mario sequel to Odyssey or Mario Galaxy 3, or just a new Mario game in general, as much as I would be over the moon for that, as someone that's been following Nintendo for his entire life and has seen the patterns of the way that they operate, I have such little hope of that happening. I'm hoping that there's an actual game that they have in the works, that they're waiting for a certain benchmark to finally release it out to the public. But it's such a minor hope, and I think the bigger reality is that they probably are just starting the game now that they're done with Bonanza. I played Odyssey in my 20s. I might not end up playing the sequel to Odyssey until I'm in my 40s. That's insane. It's already bad enough that if the game came out now, I'd be playing it in my 30s when the last one that I played was in my 20s. And, I'm old. I've had my fun. I experienced Nintendo back when they were good. I'm also mature enough to not absolutely let it consume me if Nintendo never makes another 3D Mario game again. There's plenty of other games to play. But I know there is just a massive fandom that has been anxiously waiting for another 3D Mario game, and it's just not coming. It's mind-boggling to me that we hit 2025 and the Switch 2 released and that had its first Direct after its release, and there has been nothing mentioned about a 3D Mario game during the whole 40th anniversary situation. That was... I still can't fathom how they did that. And you wonder why they had one of the worst holiday seasons you'll ever see for Nintendo. And likewise, you wonder why back in September, when I did a Buyer's Remorse video, I got more than 500,000 views on that video because everybody wanted the 3D Mario game. And if it's not a 3D Mario, it's their version of a 3D Mario, whatever that game announcement is that they're waiting for. And they're still waiting. And all they're getting now is Mario Wonder being announced for a Switch 2 edition coming out right before a new Mario movie. It is such a disappointing time to be a Nintendo fan. There's just, no matter what angle you look at it from, if you're a Pokemon fan, Pokemon Legends ZA comes out, and what a piece of crap that game is. If you're a Metroid fan, they drop Metroid Prime 4. It's just so disappointing. They release Kirby Air Riders, $70 frickin'. Even Bonanza, they bring it out and it's like, oh, this is good. And then they're like, hey, there's a $20 DLC we're gonna slap on here just because screw you guys for supporting us. Dude, Welcome Tour and what's that wheelchair basketball game called? Dragon Drive. There is an alternate reality where Nintendo launches this console with no greed. They're not sitting there trying to push an $80 Mario Kart world. They're not sitting there trying to increase all the limits on every single thing that you can spend on. And they release the console for $350, maybe $380. The Switch 2 ends up getting bought by all these kids on Christmas time. It's their gift, and Nintendo does not see such a massive drop-off in sales. And when they get the Switch 2, they don't have a game yet, because Grandma and Grandpa bought it, they didn't realize they were supposed to buy a game as well. But when they open up the Switch 2, they get a free access to Welcome Tour, as well as Dragon Drive. Well, Dragon Drive would be locked behind NSO, but close enough. If those are pack-in titles, they are appreciated, and they're considered part of Nintendo's fun little novelty. I remember when I got my 3DS, I didn't even get any 3DS games. I had Pokemon Black and White 2, I think, and I was playing one of those. But I spent a whole lot of time playing with, man, I can't remember the name of the game. Was it Face Raiders with the cards? When I got my Wii, I spent a whole crap ton of time playing Wii Sports, just like the rest of you, as well as just spending endless hours on the Me channel, creating all different types of wacky characters. Imagine if they had charged money for that Face Raider game, or they charged money to make Miis, or they charged money for Wii Sports like they had wanted to. We'd have absolutely laughed it off, the same way that we laughed off 1-2 Switch. But if 1-2 Switch was a pack-in title, we probably would have enjoyed it. We probably would have been like, oh yeah, this is a cute little gimmicky thing that they included with a console, it's fun. The same way that like Nintendo Land is appreciated by people that bought the Wii U on day one. But no, instead, we're looking at Welcome Tour. We think it's insulting that they figured that they can charge people for that money, and Drag X Drive is a dead game. Like, nobody even thinks about that anymore. But that was like pushed in as part of their main direct, one of the biggest titles they were pushing back in April, along with Welcome Tour. It's just really unfortunate to view this modern Nintendo like this. The Furukawa and Doug Bowser years, they're just so lifeless, so soulless, so faceless. Like, to an extent, I've always felt like it was a little extreme for people to say that Nintendo completely died off with Iwata, but it's only slightly too extreme. Imagine Iwata, during his time with Nintendo, letting a Switch 2 edition of Super Mario Bros. Wonder be the big 40th anniversary game. Imagine that. It would be absurd. Like, you had the 25th anniversary, they brought in Super Mario All-Stars, but you had Galaxy games too. Galaxy 2 released right before it. I'm telling you, dude, modern Nintendo is just so sad. It's a shell of what it once was. And the sad thing is, it wasn't even that long ago that it was better. Like, it's not like I have nostalgia for Nintendo when I was 5. I have nostalgia for Nintendo from like 6 years ago, before pandemic. And maybe the transition started with the launch of the Switch, but at least in the early years of the Switch, I think there was still a hint of Iwata's presence. But it's like all of the life of this company has completely gotten sucked out of it. And I'm not even talking about it from like a sentimental angle. I just mean like, where the hell are the games? Like, just stop spreading them out so far along. Just release the good ones, man. Like, it's outdated hardware and outdated software. You're not putting out like these giant bangers. You have low budget titles. This should not be taking this long to spread it apart. So they're not doing it because they're like struggling with making games because everything's so expensive, like the rest of the industry is. They're doing it because the longer they extend the life of these things, the longer they have people subscribed, the longer they can spread out every release, and the more they can capitalize on sales with every single one of these games. Back then, they had to keep releasing new games to make money. That's just no longer the case. They don't need to do that. Then it's funny because despite that, they're still increasing the price across the board on everything. Even with all of the subscriptions, they're like, oh, things are more expensive now. We got to increase prices. That's it. The line just always has to go up. And that's just how Nintendo operates. But fortunately, they're not getting away with it, and they gotta do like these sneaky little things like having trailers and direct announcements happening on Sunday because they're terrified of the backlash from the fandom. But I'm glad. It feels like they've kind of lost that chip on their shoulder where they could say and do whatever they want and get away with it. And maybe this is just a sign of the progression. Or maybe they're just the fastest selling console in history, and they're about to announce a brand new 3D Mario in a few days. Either way, by this point in time, even if Nintendo was to release a 3D Mario title, I would still feel like they had forgotten about Mario. And I think Nintendo Landon was actually spot on with this, even if it's meme to death. They might remember that they need to release a new 3D Mario for their new console eventually, but in the meantime, they've absolutely just ignored the 3D Mario fandom. Like, they haven't provided anything. So to say that Nintendo's forgotten about Mario, it's not exactly a stretch. I don't know. I don't think it is. But anyway, that's all I got for tonight. Just kind of wanted to talk about this news because Nintendo tried to just hide it and hope that nobody notices it and moves on from it. But I figured after I would talk about all the sales data, I would circle back and talk about it. Then, it's Friday night, haven't gone to sleep yet. So here you go. This is a very late upload from Nintendine. Thank you so much for listening, and I will catch you on the next one.